As Amelia fled the room, her footsteps echoing through the cold stone corridors of the manor like drum beats of retreat. Her arms tightly cradled her small cat against her chest, its claws digging into her skin in response to her tense grip. Though her face remained carefully composed, hiding behind the elegant mask of a noblewoman, deep inside her, rage boiled. The sight of Cecil, standing there so confidently, matching Bernaf blow for blow, even having the nerve to mock her within her own estate, left her humiliated and shaken. Amelia, who always prided herself on control and poise, now felt as though her pride had cracked for the first time in years. It was unthinkable. She could not understand how he had come to know about the Actium Merchant Guild. Those details were not supposed to be known by anyone outside her tight circle. The only explanation she could come to was betrayal. Someone within her own network had turned against her and fed secrets to Cecil. The thought sent a jolt of anger through her stomach, twisting it into knots of frustration and disbelief. She could not accept the possibility that Cecil had figured it all out on his own. Her mind looped back to the rumors she once laughed off. The tales claiming Cecil had fought off entire orc raiding parties and rescued his sister from a deadly team of trained assassins. Back then, she had dismissed them as fantasy, stories inflated by loyal followers who wanted to build a legend around him. But now, after seeing him throw a full-grown assassin through a window and clash evenly with Bernaf, she grudgingly began to believe that perhaps those stories weren't entirely false. Even so, she tried to convince herself that much of Cecil's reputation was built on luck, timing, and exaggerated tales whispered by eager tongues. But even her rationalizations began to feel thin, stretched under the weight of what she had witnessed. Her pace quickened. Turning a familiar corner, Amelia expected to meet with the guards she had stationed there. But her heart froze when her eyes fell upon the scene before her. The guards, strong, well-trained men, now lay in crumpled heaps on the cold floor, unconscious, but breathing. Panic began to rise in her chest. Standing among them was a single figure dressed in a hooded cloak. Calm and composed, the woman looked up and greeted Amelia with a gentle smile, as if nothing strange had happened, as if they were simply two acquaintances crossing paths. The woman softly stated that it had been a while. Lowering her hood, she revealed her face, familiar, striking, and dangerous. It was Belinda. Amelia stepped back in shock, her cat letting out a small hiss as it clung to her arms, its claws pressing deeper. Amelia asked sharply, her voice trembling between fear and fury, why Belinda was there. But before she could speak another word, Belinda vanished from view, moving faster than the eye could follow. In a heartbeat, she was at Amelia's side, cold steel gently resting against her neck. Belinda told her to remain quiet, her voice low and emotionless, yet somehow more terrifying than a shout. Amelia stood frozen, her heart pounding so loudly it echoed in her ears. The blade didn't press hard, it didn't cut, but the warning in its presence was clear. Belinda's sharp eyes then turned to the small living spider resting on Amelia's face near her lips, an unsettling yet iconic ornament she always wore as part of her identity. With steady, practiced hands, Belinda reached out and carefully plucked the spider away, her touch precise and controlled. Holding it gently between her fingers, she looked at the creature thoughtfully. Belinda murmured that she remembered what they had said during the engagement banquet. Count Perdium, Count Leopold, and Amelia's charming little siblings had laughed behind their silk fans, mocking her for raising spiders. Amelia said nothing. Her face went pale. Her silence spoke volumes. Belinda's tone shifted, no longer teasing but soft, almost sympathetic. She acknowledged that Amelia raised them, that she turned that insult into something powerful and made the spiders her symbol. Then she asked Amelia why she still wore one and questioned whether it was a sign of strength or simply a clinging to the past, still trying to prove something. Without waiting for a reply, Belinda crouched down, placed the spider gently on the stone floor, and then crushed it beneath her boot. The soft crunch echoed like a judgment passed. Belinda flatly remarked that it didn't suit Amelia anymore. Then, rising again, She lowered her blade but didn't step away. Her posture relaxed slightly, but her eyes remained alert and cold. She firmly stated that they shouldn't make things more difficult than they needed to be and instructed Amelia to cooperate. Inside the room, the air had changed, thicker now, filled with a heavy, suffocating mana presence. Cecil's senses sharpened immediately. He could feel the energy rolling in waves, warning him that Bernaf was now tapping into even deeper reserves of power. The knight's eyes narrowed with focus and contempt. He began to speak, his voice full of sharp judgment. With a tone heavy with disdain, Bernaf recalled how Cecil had once called him entertaining, a word he clearly viewed as an insult. To Bernaf, battle was sacred, honorable, not something to be taken lightly or used for fun. He accused Cecil of being a mercenary at heart, someone who treated war like a game, and claimed that Cecil had no right to call himself a nobleman, especially not beside someone like Lady Amelia, who represented dignity and nobility. Cecil flinched slightly, not from fear, but from the boldness of Bernaf's words. His pride was stirred. He met Bernaf's gaze squarely and answered back, sharp and cold. He said that Bernaf was just an escort knight and should not speak as if he had the right to judge Cecil's blood or title. His words were like arrows, aimed at Bernaf's core, meant to rattle him. But the knight didn't react. Without a word, he lunged forward once more, sword slashing through the air with frightening speed. Cecil raised his blade to defend, barely catching the blow, but the power behind it made his arms tremble. Every swing from Bernaf now came with crushing strength and ruthless precision. Still, Cecil didn't retreat. He adjusted his stance and focused all his energy on defending, carefully reading every movement. Bernaf, fully committed to ending the battle, pressed harder and faster, trying to overwhelm him. He fought with the elegance of a swordsman and the fury of a storm. Bernaf then stated coldly, with his eyes fixed on Cecil, that if Cecil was truly a noble, he should act like one and show the dignity their title demanded, not with smug grins and mockery, but with the honor their bloodline once upheld. Cecil didn't respond with words this time. He only tightened his grip on the hilt and prepared to meet the next strike head-on. As Bernaf spoke with steely resolve, his strikes became even sharper, faster, and more relentless than before. It was as though his anger and pride ignited a new fire within him. The rhythm of his swordplay changed noticeably. It was no longer measured and controlled, but aggressive and unpredictable, as if each swing carried the weight of insult and insulted honor. Every movement was fueled by purpose, and each blow landed with heavy force, hammering against Cecil's defenses like thunder. Cecil was pushed back step by step, his boots sliding along the smooth stone floor. His arms trembled from the strain of deflecting such fierce strikes. Beads of sweat dripped steadily from his chin, but his eyes stayed focused, fierce with determination. Frustration burned inside him like fire in his chest. Growling under his breath, he finally snapped that it was enough. With a burst of raw strength, he knocked Bernaf's sword aside and aimed a powerful thrust at the knight's head, hoping to disrupt his momentum. But Bernaf reacted instantly, expertly rotating his wrist to redirect Cecil's attack with smooth precision, shifting the blade's direction and throwing Cecil slightly off balance. Bernaf's movements were effortless, honed from years of training. As Cecil stumbled back to reset his footing, Bernaf saw the opportunity and launched a counter-strike. His blade struck Cecil squarely in the shoulder. Yet instead of stepping away or flinching in pain, Cecil leaned into the hit, surprising Bernaf. He took the blow intentionally, letting the force from the impact carry him forward. Using that unexpected momentum, Cecil twisted and attempted to deliver a fierce counterattack aimed at Bernaf's chest. But Bernaf, having now seen just how dangerous Cecil could be, responded quickly. He raised his blade just in time to block, the steel crashing against Cecil's in a bright shower of sparks. With a practiced move, Bernaf locked Cecil's sword between his crossguard and blade, then stepped forward and delivered a strong kick to Cecil's chest. The blow knocked Cecil back, forcing him to skid across the floor. Narrowing his gaze, Bernaf declared this to be the difference between someone who lived by the sword and someone who only played at it. Cecil grunted as he caught his balance, but instead of discouragement, a flicker of amusement danced in his eyes. His chest rose and fell heavily with each breath, his entire body aching, but he smiled, a thin, defiant expression that revealed more excitement than pain. Despite the pressure, despite the growing fatigue, he enjoyed the fight. There was something exhilarating about being pushed so close to the edge. Still, it was undeniable that Burnaf held the upper hand. His superior reach, speed, and flawless technique made it nearly impossible for Cecil to dictate the pace of the battle. Every time Cecil tried to shift the momentum by closing in, using unexpected grapples or trick movements, Burnaf shut him down with perfect counters. The battle felt hopelessly one-sided. In one tense moment, their swords clashed and locked, frozen in what appeared to be a deadlock. But Cecil knew it was only an illusion. His mana reserves were almost gone, and Burnaf's strength, enhanced by calm and refined magical control, clearly dominated. Cecil's muscles grew heavier with each movement. He could not continue like this much longer. Burnaf, sensing that victory was close, launched another brutal series of strikes. His sword became a blur, forcing Cecil to back away again. But as he retreated, Cecil's mind moved just as fast as the swordplay, not with fear, but with precision and calculation. Burnaf had accounted for everything: Cecil's techniques, his stamina, and his use of mana. But there was one thing Burnaf had not predicted, something no one else even knew: Cecil's secret weapon, his final trump card. As Burnaf lunged once more, Cecil dug his feet into the ground, centered his breathing, and reached deep into himself. Deeper than anyone expected. There, buried within him, was the third mana core, a hidden reserve he had developed in silence. When he drew upon it, the energy surged like a lightning strike through his veins. His tired limbs were instantly revitalized. Muscles that had felt close to giving out now pulsed with renewed strength. His eyes lit up with glowing energy. With a loud, defiant cry, Cecil met Burnaf's next swing head-on. Their blades collided, but this time Cecil did not yield. He pushed forward with explosive force, overwhelming Burnaf. The knight's expression shifted in surprise as Cecil's sword forced his weapon downward, twisting it free from his hands in one decisive motion. Burnaf stumbled back in disbelief, his hands empty, stunned by the sheer pressure now radiating from Cecil. He had never witnessed someone draw out such power mid-battle, especially not from a young noble he once dismissed as reckless and immature. But Cecil did not give him time to recover. Sword raised high, he stepped forward, ready to bring the fight to an end with one final strike. Just as the blade was about to fall, a sharp voice echoed through the chamber, commanding them to stop. Cecil froze mid-swing, his eyes flicking toward the source of the voice. Standing in the doorway was Amelia, her face red with fury, her expression torn between pride and desperation. Her usually calm demeanor had cracked. She shouted that Cecil could take the 10,000 gold and leave at once. Her voice trembled with emotion, the strain clear in her tone. Slowly, Cecil lowered his sword, the surge of power around him beginning to fade. He let out a long breath, wiped sweat from his forehead, and shook his head slightly in mild annoyance. He muttered that it would have been so much easier if she had just paid when he asked nicely. From the side of the room, Belinda emerged from the shadows, arms crossed, her usual smirk returning. She dryly remarked that the encounter had been far more intense than a lover's quarrel. Cecil, still catching his breath, gave her a sideways glance and replied coolly that it was just a disagreement, something that happened in every relationship. Cecil felt tired, but also satisfied. He was secretly happy that the fight was over because he was unsure if he could truly win. Still, he kept his confident attitude to hide his real feelings. He then began walking casually toward Amelia, his sword resting across his shoulders, his body still glowing faintly from the residual mana. Stopping just a few feet away from her, his tone shifted. It became more serious, less playful, more final. He said that he had almost forgotten something and then held her gaze. He informed her that he had some unfortunate news. He paused, letting the silence grow heavy before finishing the sentence and stating that the fee had gone up and it was 20,000 now.